The moment her words hung in the air between us, I felt my heart stop. Standing in her kitchen, the afternoon light streaming through the windows, I realized I'd been caught in a game I never meant to play. My girlfriend was upstairs, completely unaware of the tension that had been building between her mother and me for months. How did I get here? Let me take you back to where it all began. If you're enjoying this story so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that explore the complicated nature of relationships and the choices we make. I met Eliza during my second year of college. She was brilliant, ambitious, and had the kind of laugh that made everyone around her smile. We connected instantly over our shared love of obscure indie films and hiking trails that most people overlooked. 6 months into our relationship, she finally suggested I meet her parents. "They're going to love you," she assured me, squeezing my hand as we drove to her childhood home in the suburbs. "Especially my mom. She's always asking about you." The first time I met Catherine, Eliza's mother, I understood where Eliza got her charm. Catherine was in her early 40s but could easily pass for 35. She had the same warm brown eyes as her daughter, but there was something else there, a depth of experience, perhaps, or a hint of mischief that made it difficult to hold her gaze for too long. "So you're the young man who's stolen my daughter's heart," she said, embracing me with a hug that lasted just a second too long. "Eliza talks about you constantly." That first dinner was pleasant enough. Catherine asked thoughtful questions about my studies, my family, my aspirations. Robert, Eliza's father, was quieter but friendly, occasionally chiming in with dad jokes that made Eliza roll her eyes affectionately. It felt normal. Safe. I didn't notice anything unusual until my third visit. Eliza had gone upstairs to find some photos from her childhood she wanted to show me, leaving me alone with Catherine in the kitchen. She was preparing coffee, her back to me as she reached for mugs in the cabinet. "You know," she said without turning around, "I see why Eliza is so taken with you. You have a certain presence." I mumbled a thank you, unsure how to respond. When she turned to hand me my coffee, her fingers brushed against mine deliberately. I told myself I was imagining things. Over the next few months, the moments piled up. Catherine finding reasons to touch my arm during conversations. Her eyes lingering on me when she thought no one was watching. The way she'd sometimes text me directly instead of going through Eliza, innocent messages about dinner plans or asking if I could pick up something on my way over, but each one feeling like a small boundary being tested. I never responded inappropriately. I loved Eliza. I respected her family. But I couldn't deny the uncomfortable flutter in my stomach whenever Catherine was near, a mixture of anxiety and something else I refused to name. Then came that fateful afternoon. Eliza had invited me over to study together for finals. When I arrived, she was on the phone with her academic advisor, dealing with a registration issue that had suddenly come up. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, covering the phone. "This might take a while. Mom's downstairs if you want to wait in the kitchen." I found Catherine chopping vegetables for dinner, her back to me again. When I cleared my throat to announce my presence, she turned with a smile that seemed to know something I didn't. "Eliza's on a call," I explained, hovering awkwardly in the doorway. "She said I could wait down here." "Of course," Catherine said, gesturing to a stool at the counter. "Keep me company while I cook." I sat down, keeping my eyes fixed on the cutting board, the refrigerator, the window, anywhere but on her. The silence stretched between us, broken only by the rhythmic sound of her knife against the cutting board. Finally, she set the knife down and leaned across the counter, close enough that I could smell her perfume, similar to Eliza's but with notes of something deeper, more complex. "Why do you look everywhere except at me?" she asked softly. The question hung in the air like a challenge. My throat went dry. In that moment, I knew I had to make a choice that would define who I was as a person, as a partner to Eliza. I forced myself to meet her eyes directly. "Because I'm in love with your daughter," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. And I respect you too much to pretend I don't know what's happening here. Catherine's expression shifted, surprise, then something like respect, and finally, regret. She straightened up, creating distance between us. I'm sorry, she said after a long moment. That was inappropriate of me. It was, I agreed, not unkindly. And I think we both know why it happened. Catherine sighed, suddenly looking tired in a way I hadn't noticed before. Robert and I, we haven't been connecting for years. I thought I'd made peace with it, but then you came along, so attentive, so present, and I remembered what it felt like to be seen. I understand loneliness, I told her. But this isn't the answer. Not for you, not for me, and certainly not for Eliza. She nodded, wiping her hands on a dish towel. You're right, of course. I've been selfish. And foolish. We all make mistakes, I said. The question is what we do after we recognize them. Catherine looked at me with new eyes, not as a potential escape from her problems, but as the person who loved her daughter. You're good for her, you know. Better than I realized. That conversation changed everything. Over the following weeks, Catherine and Robert began seeing a marriage counselor. I never told Eliza about what had almost happened. Some truths serve no purpose except to hurt, but I watched as her parents slowly found their way back to each other. 6 months later, when I was helping Eliza's family set up for her graduation party, Catherine pulled me aside. Thank you, she said simply. For being strong when I wasn't. We all need someone to remind us of who we really are sometimes, I replied. That night, with Eliza's family and friends gathered around us celebrating her achievements, I looked at the woman I loved and the family that had almost been torn apart. I realized that the most important relationships in our lives are built not on the moments when everything is perfect, but on the moments when we face temptation, confusion, or pain, and choose the harder, better path. Sometimes the greatest act of love isn't what we do, but what we choose not to do. The boundaries we maintain. The respect we insist upon, even when it would be easier to look away. 2 years later, when I asked Eliza to marry me, Catherine was the first person she called with the news. The joy in her voice was genuine, as was the hug she gave me the next time we visited, appropriate, warm, and filled with the love of family. Life rarely gives us clear villains and heroes. More often, it gives us people, complicated, flawed, and capable of both terrible mistakes and beautiful redemption. The true measure of character isn't avoiding temptation altogether, but how we respond when it finds us. If this story resonated with you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We share stories that explore the complexity of human relationships and the courage it takes to make the right choices, even when they're the hardest ones. Thank you for listening, and remember, the most important person to be honest with is yourself.